Okay, the second principle I want to talk about comes from that same September of 1830 conference from a man named Hiram Page. Now, Hiram Page, like Oliver Cowdery, is important in this young early church. Hiram Page is one of the 8 witnesses of the Book of Mormon plates. I mean, he is also married to a Whitmer daughter, so he's close to the Whitmer family and Oliver Cowdery. The problem is Hiram Page gets a seer stone, has his own seer stone, and he receives revelation on it. We don't exactly know what Hiram Page's revelation said as they were destroyed, but you can tell from section 28 they had to do likely with Zion, where Zion should be, the New Jerusalem and things like that, because that's what the Lord addresses in section 28 of the Doctrine and Covenants. The issue with Hiram Page, what's interesting, is the church doesn't say, oh, you got revelation on a stone? That's a little weird. No, the church in Joseph's day knows that God speaks through seer stones. And so to them, they're like, oh, you got words on a stone? That must be from God. Again, they're confusing the process with the product. They're not saying, what do the revelations say? They're like, oh, you got it on a stone. That's their problem. And this leads to a teaching that I like to call the brethren test from Hiram Page. Is the revelation that I am getting consistent with the united voice of the first presidency and the quorum of the 12 apostles? The brethren check, the brethren test to run this by. So if you have your Doctrine and Covenants, open up to section 28 and look at verse 11 through 13. The Lord says here, Oliver Cowdery, you need to take your brother, Hiram Page, between him and thee alone, and tell him that those things which he hath written from that stone are not of me, and that Satan deceiveth him. For behold, these things have not been appointed unto him. Maybe that's the stewardship test, the first one, the first check. He's not in charge of this. But then here's the lesson also. Neither shall anything be appointed unto any of this church contrary to the church covenants. For all things must be done in order and by common consent in the church and by the prayer of faith. And then look at verse 9 there. And now behold, I say unto you, it's not revealed. No man knows where the city of Zion shall be built. And then the Lord drops a hint, which is kind of why I said that maybe Hiram Page was trying to give revelations or teachings that weren't consistent with what the Lord had revealed to Joseph Smith and with what had been given to the church at the time. Now, in context, you're not going to get direction contrary to the church covenants. All things must be done in order. You can interpret that both ways. I think it's very important, as I'll talk about. I won't get a revelation contrary to the covenants that I have made with God. I also won't get a revelation contrary to the covenants, which meant the church's articles and covenants. It's established documents. I won't get things that are contrary to what the church teaches from the united voice of the first presidency and the 12 that I should act upon. Okay? This is a statement from the church in 1913. Quote, from the first presidency. Quote, from the days of Hiram Page, there have been manifestations from delusive spirits to members of the church, when visions, dreams, tongues, prophecy, impression, or any extraordinary gift or inspiration convey something out of harmony with the accepted revelations of the church, or contrary to the decisions of its constituted authorities, Latter-day Saints may know that it is not of God, no matter how plausible it may appear. It's a great guidepost. Now, I want to be careful here, because I know that you might be listening to this saying, this is too restricting. It's too, what if I have things that I know are true, and I know they're right, and I know that one day God will reveal, or that the church will go this direction? Well, first of all, let's all be humble, number one. We don't know that for certain. Number two, is it within our stewardship to teach that for the church? Now, we can say that as our personal opinion. We can say that as our view. We can say that as our perspective. And who knows, maybe down the road that will happen. But if it will happen, it will come from the number one confidence check, from the established order, the stewardship test. But number two, God also won't direct us to act in rebellion against what the established covenants and teachings of the church are. Even if, by the way, some of those teachings may later alter. That's a big thing to grasp. Like, let me give you an example. In the days of Moses, I couldn't say, Moses, you're wrong about this. One day, all people in all tribes of Israel will be ordained to the offices of the priesthood, not just Aaron and Levi. Well, that actually turned out to be true. That was a discussion that a man named Korah and Dathan and Abiram have with Moses But they rebel against Moses, and the Lord is not happy about it. As a matter of fact, the earth swallows them whole because of it, because they rebelled against Moses and Aaron. Although centuries later, they turned out to be right, and eventually the priesthood was given to all males within Israel. So I guess, maybe back to last video, be patient and have faith, but don't rebel against the established church covenants and the accepted revelations of the church.